What's up, cousin? Welcome to CoCo Conjure. Here we talk about all things hoodoo, folklore, and spiritual journeys. My goal is to give foundation to the novice and inspiration to the advanced practitioner. If you have not guessed already, my name is CoCo. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. Thank you so much for just clicking. I appreciate you. Listen, if you could please like and subscribe wherever you are listening, leave me a 5-star review. I'd appreciate it. If you would like to send me a letter or a comment or add to the conversation at any time, you can always leave a comment on YouTube or email me at cococonjure@gmail.com. That's CoCoconjure@gmail.com. You can also leave me a DM on Instagram, but it's a high likelihood I won't see that quickly. I'm still not good at the gram, y'all. All right. So as evident by the title, this episode is an Other Tales original. So this story, it's a short story written by me using my knowledge of folklore and spiritual work while we follow our root lady extraordinaire, Monroe Devereaux. There's been a few stories about Monroe so far. So listening to the previous stories are in fact very helpful. I'm not going to lie, but it's not necessary as I try to make sure each entry into Monroe's story stands on its own. This one does build off of the last few though. So I'll be sure to link a playlist of all the other tale originals if you would like to go back and listen. Usually at the end of folklore stories, I do a breakdown. And yes, it's still very strange doing it to my own work, but if you stick it out to the end, I will extract whatever work was done and give you a play-by-play of the story. So, without further ado, I present to you Monitoring the Devil. The Reverend approached the abandoned train station with caution. Way back in the day, before Remus Devereaux left town, St. Stephen's was a small stop on a major railway. Remus's bed and breakfast brought in tourists, the curious, and seasonal workers looking for a place to sleep. Now, the overgrown, dilapidated train station was home to the wild and the wicked. Creatures such as coons, cats, spiders, crows, and a man nicknamed Sarge called the station refuge. The Reverend didn't actually know Sarge's real name, but that wasn't for lack of trying. The man simply refused to speak. Mama Green saw the man stumbling out of the woods one Wednesday on her way from her hair appointment to a prayer meeting. Something guided her to pull over to offer help, and against her better judgment, she did just that. Lynn, Mama Green's daughter, was furious when the older woman showed up to the prayer meeting with some random white guy with mud on his fatigue pants and sticks poking out of his blonde beard. But the Reverend was sure Mama Green was led by God to bring the strange man into the flock. And when asked what his name was, Mama Green explained that he wouldn't say, and since he was dressed like an army man in full fatigues, she just called him Sarge, and he just answered. And, like most small towns, the nickname stuck. Mama Green brought Sarge to the Wednesday prayer and fried chicken supper every week. That is, until the Reverend called her and her daughter horsemen for the local devil. The Devereaux woman was a problem, and her influence over the town meant spiritual warfare was afoot. And since Mama Green was ensnared with the Devereaux woman and was no longer welcome to worship at the church until she repented, that meant Sarge had been left out in the cold. Thus, the Reverend carefully walked up the sagging steps into the main area of the train station with hopes that with a bit of guidance, Sarge could be brought back into polite society. "Sarge, it's me, the Reverend," the holy man called out. "I've come to talk to you, maybe even get you to come back to church with me so we can get you cleaned up." There was shifting around and the smell of food cooking, so the Reverend knew Sarge was there. But, like always, Sarge refused to respond. So the Reverend walked in further, stepping over empty water jugs, smashed liquor bottles, and cat droppings until he reached Sarge's main encampment. The smell of food came from the beans over a campfire. The aroma of bubbling beans barely masked the smell of alcohol, body odor, and feces. Clearly, since Sarge wasn't coming to the church to get a few plates of food, he had gotten comfortable amongst the wild things. The Reverend prayed Sarge hadn't stolen anything from the only grocery store in town. The place was already facing financial difficulty, and the building it was in needed tons of mending. But the broken rarely cared about the needs of the community, and the desperate were usually the first to sin. The Reverend fixed his mind back to the mission. If he saved Sarge's soul and brought another sheep to the flock, everything would work out. All would be forgiven. So the Reverend sat himself on a camping chair, still warm from Sarge's body heat, and cracked open his Bible. Now, Sarge, I know you're here. These beans are still warm. It's all right if you don't want to speak to me, 'cause I just need you to listen. Last night, God sent me a dream, told me that if I came to you, you come back to yourself. He sent me here to work through me, you see. He showed me what your future could be, and I know if you hear his word and hold it in your heart and know the words to be true, then God will prepare a table for you. He'll anoint you in his blessing. Your cup will run over with abundance, and goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your life moving forward. I said goodness and mercy will follow you moving forward. The Reverend waited a brief moment for an acknowledgement that he knew was not coming. The only evidence that he had Sarge's attention at all was the human-shaped shadow hovering in the Reverend's periphery. The Reverend turned to the shadow and saw a dirty hand grip the wall Sarge hid behind. Well, there you are, Sarge. Like I said, just listen, okay? To gain your right future, you must simply seek God. I say again, to gain your right future, you must simply seek God. The Reverend lifted his Bible. James 4 tells us, ye lust and have not. Ye kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not, because ye ask not. It says, ye have not, because ye ask not. Ye ask and receive not, because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lusts. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? I said that the friendship of the world is enmity with God. Whoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Do ye think that the scripture saith in vain, the spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy? But he giveth more grace. Wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. Giveth grace, it says, unto the humble. So submit yourself therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. The Reverend took a moment to catch his breath before continuing. Do you understand what that means, Sarge? That means your past desires have driven you here, driven you to take refuge in the world. I said, driven you to take refuge in the world, refuge in these bottles of hooch and beer, while posting up in these ruins. But God wants better for you, Sarge. All you must do is... Just as the Reverend was getting to the meat of his visit, a black cat came scrambling past, chasing a white bird. The wild animals knocked over the beans, and the scuffle tossed all the trash about. Fur and feathers flew as the two forces fought for survival. The skirmish came to an end with the cat leaping on the Reverend's chest before double jumping to snatch the white bird out of the air. The move caused the Reverend to fall backward, nearly hitting his head in a pile of muck. The cat had a much more graceful landing, with the bird clenched securely in its fangs. Now that the black cat successfully caught its prey, it calmly walked over to the human shadow of Sarge and dropped the bird at his feet as a present. The Reverend did his best to right himself. He was so dizzy that all he could do was focus on not letting the bile from his stomach past his teeth. The only thing that steadied him was a calm, dirty, pale hand on his shoulder, though the dead bird in Sarge's other pale, dirty hand made the Reverend lurch forward with a dry heave. Sarge put the bird down and reached for a full bottle of water as the black cat came over to guard its catch. The world stopped spinning enough for the holy man to look up, and he saw Sarge standing there, solid and silent, in his black turtleneck and black cargo pants under his signature army fatigue jacket, while offering a bottle of water covered in debris. Sarge's eyes were glassy from lack of sleep and alcohol withdrawal. His pale, hollow face was covered in mud, and a twig was clenched between his teeth. The black cat sat calmly, cleaning its maw of blood from the white bird. The scene disturbed the Reverend down to his spirit, like he was face to face with some dead man who forgot he was dead, and the familiar spirit who kept feeding the corpse. The Reverend took 2 steps back, his eyes never leaving the cat or Sarge. Sarge cocked his head to the side, his neck creaking and cracking, as he took a step forward with the bottle of water outstretched. "No!" the Reverend shouted as he put up his hands, Bible outstretched. "Don't you come any closer." The Reverend kept moving backward until he reached the steps while holding out his Bible like a shield. Sarge remained still, eerily still, like he was a demon, unsure how to be human. His chest didn't rise and fall. He didn't blink. Sarge didn't even flinch as the black cat proceeded to weave its liquid body between his legs before laying at his feet. The Reverend was halfway to his car before he lowered his Bible, turned his back to the train station and the demon that lay within, and high-stepped it the rest of the way. His Escalade unlocked itself as he got closer. Once safe behind the wheel of his car, the Reverend locked the door and started to recite the Lord's Prayer. Just as he finished up with his "forever and ever, amen," he heard the rumbling of an old pickup chugging toward the train station. The Reverend would have known the sound of that car anywhere. He followed that car all over town sometimes. He quickly started the Escalade with a quiet purr and reversed safely till the trees hid his black behemoth of a car. Not too soon afterward, Monroe Devereaux's pickup creeped past him and pulled up closer to the train station, a trail of black birds following her car. The devil woman got out of the driver's side and picked up a cooler and backpack out of the pickup bed. Once she was settled and the birds that were following her also settled in the trees, she swung around to the passenger side and helped old lady Mama Green out of the car. Now, Mama, maybe you should have worn your good sneakers. It's dangerous out here in those loafers. Well, young lady, you wear your best when you go to visit a friend. That's how we do it down here. I don't know what y'all folks do up north. Rose simply chuckled and helped Mama Green navigate to the steps. The Reverend got out of his car and creeped closer till he was within earshot. Sarge, Mr. Sarge, come on out now. It's just me and that friend I told you about. The one that brought you those new clothes and some groceries. She brought more for you if you want to meet her. Sarge and his black cat came to the top of the steps. Oh, Sarge, you smell like you enjoyed them spirits I brought you last time, Mama Green exclaimed. Now, you wasn't supposed to drink it all at once or bathe in it, you know. Mama Green, be kind to the man. We are in his home, remember? Ro chastised through a smile. She walked right up to Sarge, no fear in her steps. Not that the Reverend thought that there would be fear. The devil ain't afraid of demons, you see. Well, hey there. If you're a friend of Mama, you're a friend to me. I'm Ro Devereaux. She one of those Devereaux. If you from these parts and you heard of him, right, Sarge? Mama Green asked, but didn't wait for the answer. Instead, she held out her hand to Sarge and with his help navigated the stairs. She stopped first to pet the cat between the ears, and a welcome gesture as far as the Reverend could tell. Then she pulled out a trash bag from her purse and disappeared somewhere inside the train station. Oh, goodness, Sarge, it is such a pleasure to meet you. I brought you some clean clothes and some more of those beans. Mama said you liked you a baked bean, and you eat it with whatever you catch out here. Oh, and some water to clean up with and to drink and all that. Ro pulled a wipe out of her bag as she stepped closer to Sarge. Sarge took a step back, but Ro smiled and slowly inched closer. Sarge, it's just a face wipe. A man as handsome as you shouldn't look like he hasn't washed in months, you know? We love ourselves a wild masculine man, Sarge, but we also must maintain dignity. Ro paused, and Sarge didn't move. So she took it as a sign to clean his face with the wipe. She pulled the rest of the wipes out of her bag and put them in his hands. Now listen, Sarge, a baby wipe is only going to make you feel but so clean. So if you want a hot bath, you just come to my house, okay? You can't miss it. It's almost dead center of town, bottle trees in the front yard. You come by and clean up. Oh, and bring me something that you may have caught out here. Then we can have dinner together too before you come on back home. Look like that cat done caught something else and made a mess of the place, Mama Green shouted from inside the train station. Then it's a good thing we came to drop off all this stuff, huh? Rose said. She moved down the steps to pick up the cooler, but Sarge wouldn't let her touch it. Like a gentleman, he picked up the heavy ice chest and brought it up the steps. Oh, why, thank you, Sarge. That's real nice of you. Now listen, don't unpack it, all right? Just keep it. And when you're ready to come take a bath, you can bring it to my house and use it to haul whatever it is you caught out here that we gonna eat for dinner, Rose said as she placed the backpack on top of the cooler. Same with the clothes in there. Just bring it to me full of dirty clothes, then I'll wash them while we eat. And then afterward, I'll drive you back to your home, okay? Okay, we all cleaned up now, Sarge. Now listen, you can trust Rose. She good people. She a Devereaux. And remember, I told you the Devereaux have to take care of this town because it is their town, you see. Part of their family promise. And she ain't gonna make you do nothing you don't want to. But if you want to come and visit her, I promise you her door is always open to you. And if I don't see you this week, Sarge, I'll just come by next week and we can switch out the empty cooler and dirty clothes with things you can use. Okay? Ro added. Mama Green hugged Sarge before tugging on his jacket. The man smiled at her and lowered his head so she could kiss his cheek. Now you take care of yourself, Sarge. Don't get hurt out here and make me worry. Mama Green said before Ro helped her down the steps. The old woman ambled back to the car. Before Ro turned to do the same, she pulled a small leather pouch on a cord out of her bag. She placed the charm around Sarge's neck. "So Mama don't worry about you," she whispered to Sarge. The man smiled and clasped the charm between his long, bony fingers. The Reverend knew that pouch. A couple of his congregation members showed up with them around their neck at the last prayer and supper service. And sometimes he'd see folks holding them tight as they go about their business in town. He always suspected that those pouches meant witchcraft was afoot. And now he knows for sure that they are the mark of the devil's daughter. Ro and Mama Green put it away in the white pickup. The Reverend started up his Escalade and slowly creeped out of the woods. Once he figured the devil woman was far enough away, he pulled out onto the main road. Whether it was out of instinct and habit or curiosity, the Reverend didn't follow the thought. He just followed Ro back into town. His mind was so fixed on following Ro that he missed Sarge, the black cat, and a few of those black birds watching him as he drove away. Ro's first stop was to Mama Green's dress shop, where the elder lady got out fussing. The Reverend was too far to tell what the conversation was about, but he was sure the woman was fussing because her hands flew all over. Ro got out of the car and unloaded more stuff out of her flatbed, groceries and things, and brought them inside. Today was Friday, so the Reverend assumed it was provisions from Mama's speakeasy that runs out the back of the shop. No doubt all the sinners and saints would be in the juke joint tonight, since word around the Wednesday prayer meeting was that Lynn Wynn, Mama Green's daughter, was performing with the house band. Lynn's voice was an unmatched, God-given talent. She used to sing with the Reverend's church choir, even leading the group to 4 straight local competition victories. The Reverend hadn't heard Lynn's voice since Christmas, though. Both Lynn and her mama, Miss Green, were hell-bent on spreading the false testimony of the diabolical Devereaux, and, as a truth-teller, the Reverend outed them to the congregation and told them not to come back till they were ready to return to God's flock. The Reverend expected Ro to get back in the pickup, but she didn't. Instead, she grabbed her humongous black bag out of the back and started down the street. This particular area around Mama Green's shop was considered downtown St. Stephen's. Calling it downtown was a stretch to any big city dweller. It was mostly a mile or two of mom and pop shops, a few municipal buildings, and a few residential properties. But it's where all the action took place. So it was downtown St. Stephen's. The Reverend followed Ro to Jim's Liquor and Spirits and Arnold's Man Funk Gym. The two establishments shared a building, with the gym below the liquor store. Jim and Arnold met her outside with big smiles. Arnold held a broom in his hand, and Jim held a mop straight up in a bucket. The Reverend got just close enough to see them hand Ro an envelope full of cash, but not close enough to tell what they were talking about. Ro hurriedly put the cash in her purse. She hugged both of them, then proceeded to take the broom and the mop out of their hands. The two men went back to work. The devil woman put the mop and bucket to the side, then gripped the broom tight. She closed her eyes, squared her shoulders. Her breathing slowed down as she settled into the moment. She looked a lot like Sarge had out in the forest, a demon cosplaying as a human. The only tell that she was alive was her mouth moving like she was speaking, but not enough for any real sounds to come out. Then she opened her eyes, kissed the key on the chain around her neck, and went inside. The Reverend didn't have to wait long for the woman to come back out. With each step, she sang some melody he couldn't place and swept the dust from inside toward the curb. Once the task was complete, she pulled some liquid mixture out of her purse and poured it inside of the bucket. Then she placed her hand over the mixture, muttering to herself again, before tipping the bucket and mopping the mixture from the curb to the front door. When she was done, she went back inside with the broom, mop, and bucket. A few moments later, she came back outside with Jim hot on her tail. He handed her a bottle of water, and she dropped it in her humongous bag, and then dug around for a bit and pulled out a pouch of dried herbs and handed it to Jim. She stayed chatting with him and started mimicking sprinkling something. Clearly, the woman was doing work for these men, defrauding the two men out of their hard-earned dollars with her demonic woo-woo. The Reverend assumed it was for their business. If they wanted blessing for their business, all they had to do was come to him. I mean, the two men didn't go to church regularly, but their wives did, though, and the Reverend would have been happy to help. The women could have asked him for the blessing, and he'd have done it for free. The Reverend drew closer, trying to hear what Ro was saying. If he knew what she was doing, maybe he could find a Bible verse or form a prayer to undo the influence. "Hey, Pop!" a deep voice called from behind the Reverend, making him jump. Sorry, Pop. I wasn't trying to scare you. I've been calling for you for a bit now, though." The Reverend righted himself before turning around to greet his son. John the contractor, was the spitting image of his mother, a fact that quietly upset the Reverend as his wife woke up and disappeared into the night almost a year ago. One night the two of them were arguing about money. The next morning she was gone, never to be heard from again. Looking at his son was like looking at a ghost of her. "Now, Junior, where'd you come from?" the Reverend recovered, pulling his son in for a hug. "The hardware store, Pop. See if they had that chain I need for my saw, you know. That tree in the front of the house is thick, and if you want it down, the axe ain't gonna cut it." Ro finished up her business with Arnold and Jim and was on the move again. The Reverend was eager to follow. "John, let's talk and walk," he said to his son, already on the move. "Hey, Pop, wait up!" John hollered after him. As Ro walked down the street, folks stopped and greeted her. Not the simple southern wave and a smile as was polite to do. No, they actually stopped and talked with her or gave her a hug. "So, Pop, the thing is, the landlord said we couldn't cut down that tree. I still need the saw to prune it back so it doesn't get caught up in them power lines, but we can't cut down that tree," John huffed as he tried to keep pace. "Well, did you explain the danger, Junior? The thing is looming over the house. We need it down before hurricane season." "Hurricane season is long off, Pop," John said. Rose stopped at the local cafe owned by a woman the town called Neck. Best coffee in town. It was still early enough that a few folks were sitting out front chatting and sipping. Most of them various business owners, like Pookie, who owned the hair salon, and Ray, her husband, who owned the barbershop in the same building, as well as Boy Gates and his brother Man, who owned the hardware store next door. Rose sat with them and started talking. "Pop, where we going in such a rush? Just slow down." The Reverend turned to his son. "Sorry, my feet are moving, but my mind is elsewhere. Why don't we sit here?" The two men parked it on a bench across from Neck's cafe. "So, Pop, hurricane season is long off, like I was saying. We can just wait a bit, and when it gets closer to time, we can ask the landlord if pruning is all right. She was awfully upset this morning when I started talking about that goddamn tree," John said, dabbing at his brow. Keeping up with his dad made him work up a sweat. "Never mind all the renovations you want done at the fucking house and the church." "Language!" "Sorry, Pop. I'm just saying, I'm not sure why all of this is such a big deal." "Well, we'll have to stay ready and welcoming. The church need a new kitchen and to be fortified against the storms. Folks take refuge there when the rains come. And that tree and them lines ain't good. Lightning will find a way, you see. Plus, we don't want to start the renovations on the house and then have it all for nothing because the tree done fell through the roof." "Well, the landlord says she want to check out these renovations on the house. I told her to stop by on Monday. You don't have to be there, Pop. I know you see Ray for your lineup then. I'll tell her how you want the kitchen and the master bedroom. She seemed kind of leery, like she didn't want to make too many changes to the structure. She said changing up the church was fine, though. The Reverend watched as more business owners joined Rose's table as he listened to his son. It seemed like every store owner in town was at that table. Well, things have to change if we expect something good to come. We cannot stay stagnant and expect blessing. The new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. Tell me what scripture that is, Junior. I don't know, what is that, 2 Corinthians 5:17? John said on a sigh. Very good. So we just have to make sure the landlord is in the same mind as us. We can't let her stop us. She and us, see, we need to be of one mind, having the same love, being of one accord. That's Philippians 2:2. Yeah, Junior, it is. So listen, we gonna get that tree down and we gonna convince her to let us do some minor renovations on the house and fortify the church. And we gonna make both places a shining beacon for all those who believe in the Lord. Pop, I already said she was fine with the church stuff. And I'm sure I can make her mind to update the house, but she was adamant, and I mean adamant, that tree stay put. Well, we need her to say yes to all of it, not some of it. Why, Dad? We could have done all this without her permission years ago, before the landlord came by one day and saw me sizing up that tree and started asking questions. Why now instead of when Mama asked you to do all of this over a year ago? John said, leaning back on the bench and crossing his leg in his arms. The man had an actual business to run. This home reno stuff was just more added stress that he certainly didn't need. We gotta counteract what that devil woman did to her house and what she doing to this town. You see her over there? You don't think I noticed how many people go in and out of her house? How they stop and admire the work you did there? It draws people, Junior. It draws people to her. Pop, that sounds like jealousy. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's ox, remember? Jealous? No, I'm simply trying to outshine the devil. She draws people into that house of sin because it looks interesting and new and shiny. She does it in person to draw people in too. Look how she got them good business people in our town hanging on her every word, laughing at her jokes, the Reverend said, spitting a bit at the end. And I ain't seen not one of them in church this past Sunday. So the woman's work is working. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Nay, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him that love us. I'm pretty sure you just mixed up two verses together that time. The word of God is true, no matter the order, the Reverend said. It looked like Ro was ending her roundtable discussion with the business owners of town. She passed out little bags similar to the ones she gave Arnold and Jim earlier as she collected cash from each business owner present. You know these renovations that are just so important are not going to change what Ro is doing in town. You're talking silly, Pop, John said as he nodded to Lin Wynn walking past to join Ro at Next Cafe. Lin gave John a wave before scowling at the Reverend. We won't know till we try. So we got to talk to the landlord, bring her round to the renovations and cutting down that tree, the Reverend said as he acknowledged Lin with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Pop, you know the renovations are not going to bring Mama back either, right? The Reverend whirled around to John. What you say to me, boy? I said Mom ain't coming back because you finally cut down the tree and expanded her sewing room and opened up the kitchen. The woman's been gone for over a year. She could be with a whole new family. Hell, she could be dead for all we know. The Reverend lost his temper and grabbed John by the collar. That might have worked when John was a boy, but he was a grown man now. Even sitting, he stood taller and wider than his father and was practically unmovable unless he wanted to be moved. And John didn't want to be moved. The two men stared at each other for a beat. John saw a sad man holding on to what little he could. The Reverend saw his wife's eyes looking back at him. The Reverend was the first to back off. Ro was on the move again, back toward her pickup, this time with Lynn in tow. If the Reverend didn't follow now, he would lose them.
You know what? I'm putting a lot on you. Your business is doing well since you started picking up work in Charleston and Monk's Corner.
The Reverend patted his son on the shoulder.
I'm proud of you, boy. So you just tell me the landlord's name, and I'll go call on him. See if a few scriptures and a plead from a holy man will change their mind.
You are not going to like who she is, and I promise you, you are not going to change her mind.
Junior, you say that every time we talk about these renovations. Just tell me the lady's name.
Don't say I ain't warned you, John fluffed.
Junior!
Monroe Devereaux. That house, the church, and the land it sits on all belongs to her. The entire time the Reverend trailed Ro and Lynn to the mayor's farm on the outer edges of St. Stephen's, he wanted to cuss. Not take the Lord's name in vain, but really let out a fuck or a shit. And while he was at it, he wanted to take a sip of something sold at Jim's Liquor and Spirits. He almost stopped there when he left his son and all but chased after the two women. But he didn't. He made a vow to God and to his wife to be a better man 6 months ago, and he was going to keep that vow no matter how stressed he was. Instead, he recited a few choice verses between prayers for a calm mind.
Fear thou not, for I am with thee. I will strengthen ye. I will help thee.
That's Isaiah 40:10, he said to gain some courage. The Devereaux woman had the entire town under her thumb, and if he was going to go against her, it would take some divine strength.
Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good.
Romans 12:21, to keep his mind on task and out of the bottle. Whatever the Devereaux woman was plotting, he needed to stay focused on doing good for the town. And of course, there's 1 Peter 5:7.
Cast all ye cares on him, for he cares for you,
to help ease his anxiety. The fact that his home and his church was in the hands of the she-devil was enough to make him hurl. And Junior seemed to be on her side, willing to protect her from him, or at least playing some weird middle ground that kept them apart. That means she had John snared in her trap of charm and witchcraft. And if she had John and his church and his house and half the town, she even had the feral alcohol-drenched demon at the train station, then that meant she was winning the spiritual war, and he didn't even notice.
But no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord.
The Reverend recited Isaiah 54:17 to rebuke Ro's stronghold. Then he followed it up with Ephesians 6:11-12.
Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
That should armor him against further attacks from her. These were not the choice words he wanted to utter as his mammoth black SUV barreled after Roe's white pickup, but it would have to do. And his prayers and verses must have put him up against something untoward, because he noticed a flock of blackbirds, following him and Roe down the dirt road toward the mayor's house. Roe pulled up to the gates at the mayor's house, and the Reverend peeled off and hid behind trees. The blackbirds settled in the branches above his car. The Reverend knew the blackbirds were there because one or two released their droppings on his windshield, and he had to pump the wiper fluid to get it off. From his location, he watched as the mayor ambled up to her car and greeted her warmly. Roe got out and gave the man a hug. The mayor had been mayor for no less than 25 years. And before him, his father was mayor, and his grandfather was mayor, and so on until back in slavery times. There were 4 pillars of the community in St. Stephen's, people who upheld their good Christian ways of life. The Reverend, for obvious reasons, the judge and the sheriff, also for obvious reasons, and of course, the mayor. Those 4 men kept things status quo, making sure all things were good and righteous. Now, for sure, the judge was already corrupted. Judge Brown told the Reverend months ago that Rue rooted him not once, but twice. The second time, the man was out of his mind from lack of sleep. Then, a few days later, the Reverend saw with his own eyes as the judge left the Devereaux house, rested and refreshed. Not too soon after that, the sheriff told him that the judge was a little too familiar with one of the kinky whores that just got released on bail. A bail, the Reverend found out, that was paid by the judge through Roe Devereaux. And now he saw with his own eyes as Roe pulled out envelopes of cash she collected from the downtown business owners and counted the money in front of the mayor. And what's worse, the mayor had the nerve to double count the money to make sure his bribe was all there. The jolly man pulled out a slip of paper from his pocket and passed it to Roe. Clearly the righteous were falling prey to the evil that showed up and started spreading across the town. Roe and Lynn finished up their visit with the mayor. Lynn handed the man a pie, a styrofoam container, and a jug of whatever it was that Mama Green served at her speakeasy. Roe walked the mayor to the gate and shook his hand. Just when the 2 women were about to leave, the mayor waved his hands frantically. The 2 women waited at the gate as the mayor disappeared into the house. When he came back, he held a cage with a black rooster and a white hen inside. From where he was, the Reverend could hear Lynn yelp as she scurried back to the white pickup. Roe cackled and took the 2 birds off the mayor's hands. She kissed the old man's cheek, put the secured yard birds in the back of her pickup, and not too soon after, they were on the road again. As they drove past where the Reverend was tucked away, he could have sworn he saw Roe and Lynn slow down and give him the stink eye. But he figured he had to be imagining things. He was too well hidden and too well protected by the armor of God. He started his car to follow them, but no sooner did the engine turn over did the blackbirds swarm around his car. Some of them pecked at it, some of them defecated on his car. Out of sheer panic, the Reverend floored it onto the highway. The birds didn't stop attacking, so he was miles away and going way too fast for the birds to keep pace. Once the coast was clear, he checked his surroundings to see if maybe he lost Roe and Lynn in their white pickup. Imagine his surprise when he saw the white pickup in his rear view. With all that commotion with the avian army of hell, he must have sped past them. No longer able to keep up any sort of ruse or follow the she-devil and her horsemen, the pastor floored it and headed back to town. With that kind of money in her purse, the next logical place for Roe to go was the bank. He'd just have to pick up his chase back in town. The sun was no longer in the sky, and the Reverend saw Tammy, the bank teller, leave hours ago. He wanted to get out of his SUV and head into Neck's cafe and get a little something to eat before heading home and before she closed. Neck made the best buttered beans and smoked neck in town, though that has nothing to do with her nickname being Neck. But now that he knew she was entangled with the Devereaux lady, he could see the dark cloud around her quaint business. Instead, he drove out of town and grabbed gas station chicken before heading home. Much to his surprise, as he drove past the church and graveyard, he saw a rose-white pickup in his driveway and the silhouette of a woman on his porch. The Reverend choked a bit on his sweet tea and slowed down. He needed to prolong his ride to his house so he could gather his thoughts. He dabbed himself with napkins to clean up the spill and racked his brain for a fitting chapter and verse. "The Lord shall fight for you, and you shall hold your peace." The Reverend quoted Exodus 14:14 as he made the final stretch up the driveway. He grabbed his tea and bucket of chicken before exiting the car. As he slammed the driver's side door, a flock of black birds squawked and swarmed. He watched as they sat themselves in the gnarled, overgrown tree on his front lawn and on the power lines running through it. "Well, there you are, Reverend. I was wondering when you'd make it home." The Reverend turned to the woman on the porch. He expected to see Ro, but it was Lynn's drawl that greeted him. Seeing the horseman on his front step was more startling than even if the devil woman herself had been sitting there waiting for him. "Oh, Reverend, you were expecting Ro, weren't you?" Lynn laughed a bit. "She back in that graveyard you passed visiting some family. I told her I'd wait here for you. I tried to get her to come meet you, but she said her time was too precious to be wasted in such a way." "Well, ain't that just rude?" the Reverend retorted before sipping his tea. He had to stay calm, and the cool liquid helped. Would have helped more if it had a splash of rum or bourbon, but the Reverend wasn't that man anymore. "Well, you know how those northern people are, no manners and all that." Lynn settled herself on one of the two rocking chairs on the Reverend's front porch, the one his wife normally sat in. The Reverend took the rocking chair opposite her. "To be fair, I'm surprised you came calling on me, Lynn," the Reverend said as he sat his food and drink on the small table between them. "Oh, really? And why would that be, Reverend? Because you made my mama cry on Christmas and damned me to hell in front of the entire town? Or because you thought Ro and I would be at the bank handing Tammy a large envelope full of cash?" The Reverend crossed his legs and started rocking. "Perhaps I could have chosen my words much better on Christmas, but the Spirit moved in me, and you know how it is when the Holy Spirit catches you up in inspiration." "Oh, the Holy Spirit never moved me to tell people's personal business in such a way, so no, I don't know what that's like, Reverend." "Did you come here to be hostile with me, Lynn Wynn?" "Oh, no, I came here to let you know that I saw you, and I'm worried for you." "You saying you saw me at the mayor's house?" the Reverend said. It was a question, but he didn't phrase it that way. "Why, yes, Reverend. I saw you at the mayor's house, but I saw you everywhere, really. I saw you follow Ro around town after she dropped Mama off. I saw John give you a fright, even though he called out to you 6 or 7 times before reaching you. I saw you follow us up to the mayor's house. I even saw you when you were sitting outside the bank, waiting for Ro." "Did you now?" the Reverend said. The birds and the trees shifted and resettled, claiming his focus. A swarm of flies started hovering around his sweet tea, and he swatted at them. Yes, sir, I did, Lynn said as she started rocking back and forth a bit. Funny how the flies didn't seem to bother her, the Reverend noticed. And you came here to tell me all that? The Reverend asked on a laugh. Yes. Rose said she never met you in person, and now I find that so hard to believe since you seem so drawn to her. Oh, her charms don't draw me, Lynn, and moving about town is normal for a man like me. I wanted to renew my membership with Arnold. I wanted to get coffee and a bite to eat from Nick, and John and I had business to discuss. And I guess you was just going for a joyride up to the mayor's house then, huh? As I am wont to do, the Reverend retorted, swatting more flies about. Well, I see. I must have got it all wrong then. That's good, 'cause I was starting to suspect you were stalking my girl, Reverend. Maybe even became a little obsessed with her. The Reverend laughed at that. Lynn Wynn, that sounds like you reading a little too much into things. Well, that's good to hear from you, Reverend, Lynn said as she rocked a bit while staring off into the distance. And I guess you are also just drawn to check up on Sarge, even though you haven't seen that man since the Wednesday before Christmas, right? 'Cause seeing Sarge is just the right thing to do and all for a man like you. The Reverend turned then and gave Lynn his full attention, letting the flies do as they may as his cool persona dropped. Excuse me, Lynn? Oh, you didn't hear me. The way John was calling for you earlier, I figured you might need hearing aids now since you're getting older. Lynn reached in a little and spoke louder. I said, how is Sarge doing? You know he's a good hunter, trained his black cat up to do the same on small game. Do you know how much talent you need to train a cat up to help you hunt? I suppose you need a lot of talent to train strong-minded things. Make it believe it's hunting for the good of both of you, when really it's simply sacrificing its talents to a much larger devil, the Reverend retorted. Oh, is that how you see it, Reverend? Why, yes. Sarge has his cat doing his hunting, and I guess Devereaux has you and your reputation to keep her afloat round town. The Reverend turned his attention to the birds as they started their pulsing flying maneuver again. And you know what Leviticus says about sacrificing to devils? No, but I have a feeling you about to tell me, Reverend. Leviticus 17:7. And they shall no more offer their sacrifices unto devils, after whom they have gone a whoring. Lynn sucked her teeth. And that's what you think the cat is doing? Whoring itself out for what? Belly rubs and ear scratches? I calls it like I sees it, the Reverend said, standing 10 toes down. Huh. Well, I don't go out there much. Well, because Lynn gestured to herself like her very aura explained everything. But, I went out there a few times, and that's not what it looked like to me at all. Well, do tell, since you have everything figured out, the Reverend said. Lynn took a breath. It looks to me like a broken man, a man who lost everything and is doing his best to hold on to what's left, found himself an ally in the fight for survival. And we all need allies, don't we, Reverend?
And that's how you see it, huh?
Oh, yes. I don't have a fancy Bible verse to back me up or expand upon my viewpoints, but I can say that since you kicked me out of your congregation, I stopped seeing the devil in everything, and survival became a little easier. Lynn shifted to look at the Reverend dead in his eyes. I also learned how to mind my own business.
And now, I don't know about all that, Miss Lynn Wynn. Seems like you followed me about today just as much as I may or may not have followed Ro around.
As you talked to your son, went on a joyride, renewed your membership with Arnold, and stopped at the bank to handle business, even long after Tammy left and went home. The Reverend nodded. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another, Lynn quoted.
That's Ephesians 4:25, the Reverend identified. Seems like something of our time together did stick.
Oh, no, the pastor at Whitechapel back in Monk's Corner, that was a part of his sermon last Sunday. That pastor also taught me, a false witness will not go unpunished, and he who tells lies will perish. I think that one is a proverb.
Really? 'Cause I think that's a threat,
the Reverend said. Oh, it's a truth, Reverend. You cannot admit to spying on someone you perceive as an enemy. You sat right there and think I am boo-boo the fool, like I don't know what you did all day today. Just a monitoring spirit floating about and gathering intel. You have no idea what you saw, Reverend, but I can imagine the lies you were telling yourself. I bet they are similar to the lies you spread on Christmas Day after you shared your intel about me, about Mama, about Judge Brown, about them good aunties in town. Whatever reason you have for following Ro around today, Reverend, it cannot be sound. But I imagine it's fueled by jealousy and fear. See, most monitoring spirits are jealous and scared of their target for one reason or another. And we both know a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Come on now, sis. I'm tired. Rose stood under the blackbird-infested tree and shouted. The Reverend could not see her too well, just her silhouette. A few of the birds landed on the branch above her head and squawked. Well, hello to you too. Come on by soon. I think I left you some seeds out back. If not, I'll be sure to throw some when I get home, Rose said to her bird friends. The Reverend stood up and leaned in to see if he could catch more of what she was saying. Did the woman just understand bird squawks? She talking to animals now? Well, Reverend, that's my ride. It was good catching up with you. Remember to live holy, Reverend, Lynn said over her shoulder as she joined Ro. The Reverend went inside and peeped through the blinds. Once the pair were out of sight and the Reverend repeated a few more scriptures to calm his nerves and ward off evil, he went about his night routine. His house was an old plantation house. He should have guessed a while ago that it must have belonged to a Devereaux at some point. The Devereaux founded St. Stephen's. That is, back when the Devereaux name was attached to rich white slave owners. He also assumed that the big house from back in the day must have been the current day Devereaux house. Now that he knew that was not the case, he could feel the hollowness of his home. Large and empty, that's what it was. Large, empty, and with those birds outside, it was shrouded by darkness. It didn't help that it was just him there. No friends, no congregation members in need of help, no son to watch the game with, no wife to love on. Just him in an empty, hollow, large house filled with his loneliness. The current day Devereaux house was just as large. A few nights ago, he drove past and saw how well her bed and breakfast was doing. People were in and out. To be expected, her home was near downtown St. Stephen's, and if he remembers correctly, Lynn was bringing the roof down with some worldly song. He suspected that the Devereaux woman must have weaved her witchcraft to draw that many people to her, the same way she was weaving her witchcraft with the businesses in town. She was in the graveyard tonight, and she'd been going back at least once weekly since the Christmas service. He know because he saw her. I mean, it is hard to miss the diabolical Devereaux. People stop her in the streets. She always has a big Cheshire grin on her face, and as evident by today, she's always up to something. Sweeping and washing sidewalks, working roots for whoever's willing to pay her. And now she's got the mayor trapped with pies and old white men on green paper. The Reverend retired to his study and pulled out his family Bible. It was full of annotations from his predecessors. What text to read when downtrodden, what prayer to say when in trouble, and what chapter and verse to recite to ward off evil. He tried to teach John Jr. all this too, as his father had taught him, as his father learned from his grandfather, but John was always more interested in working with his hands. And now it seemed John Jr. was warming up to working with the root lady. Speaking of roots, how did Devereaux know that he was out there with Sarge? He was well hidden in the trees, and it's not like Sarge said anything. The man can't speak, or at least he won't speak. It had to be some witchcraft, right? Maybe the black cat told her, like how the birds were talking to her before. Maybe she was monitoring him too. Squawking brought the Reverend back to his window, and he had to squint through the flies attracted to the porch light, but he was sure those birds the Devereaux woman spoke to were still in that tree. He opened his door and rushed down off the porch, picking up a rock on his way. He tossed the rock at the base of the tree, and sure enough, a flock of birds flew up and away. Oh, he was not having that. Sure, he may have followed Devereaux around town, but she sent her familiars to attack him on the roads. No way they were going to sit in that tree and watch him and report back to that devil woman. The Reverend went around back and got his axe. John said they'd need a chainsaw to cut the tree down, but at this moment, the entire might of God was in the Reverend's hands. It took him most of the night, but the tree came falling down, thankfully, not through his roof. Exhausted, the Reverend went back into the house to study his Bible more. He had to come up with a way to undo Rose's work on the businesses around town and make sure she never followed him again. Maybe he could clean off his porch too and bless the home. He had to make sure Lynn didn't leave anything on him at the behest of that devil woman. The next morning, the Reverend woke to a page of his Bible stuck to his face and the phone ringing. "Good morning. This is Reverend John speaking," he said. "Ah, yeah, Reverend, it's the mayor. I tried calling you last night and I couldn't get you. I saw you up here at the farm yesterday too. Sure did see you. I thought you was coming to call on me, but you came driving out that far. It's like a bat out of hell." "Oh, Mayor," the Reverend said. "Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I'll come see you today. Had some business I forgot about back in town." The Reverend flinched as he told the half-truth. It was becoming a habit he really did need to shake. "Oh, yeah? That's good. That's real good. 'Cause see, I spoke with a few businesses around town, and with Rose B&B, we think we might be able to attract folks in by making our humble township a cheap destination wedding location.
You know, good food catered by Neck, wine and such by the case from Jim. I even have plans to try and get the train to stop back round here once Ro or you can get Sarge someplace safe.
You don't say, the Reverend said as he stood up and peeped out his window. He did sweep off the porch while reciting psalms, and he prayed over every inch of that house before going back to study. The crows didn't come back, thankfully, but there was some woman dressed in funeral wear, veil and all, sitting on the felled tree out front. The Reverend grabbed his Bible and ran outside to the front porch, and something cold ran down his spine as he locked eyes with the woman sitting on the tree.
Yeah. Now see here, your son Junior, he say that you was trying to renovate the church, and that's good to hear since we got plans to make this township something shiny again. So a bunch of the business owners in town took up collection on the church's behalf. I saw the money myself yesterday, counted it once, not once, but twice. That's why I was hoping you was gonna stop in when I saw your truck. We raised enough money to get them renovations underway at the church ASAP. That's what happened when the good people of this town come together, you know?
The Reverend half heard what the mayor said. He was too busy staring at that woman on the tree. She reminded him of Sarge and Ro yesterday, possessed by something pretending to be human. She was eerily still, not a breath, not a muscle twitch.
You hear what I say, Reverend? I want to come by, or you come on up here and we discuss how to move the ball forward with these renovations on the church.
The renovations, right. I'm grateful for the town pitching in. I'm sure those blessings will ripple across all their businesses. Mayor, let me call you back. I got someone in my yard and I think they may be lost. The Reverend didn't even wait for the mayor to say goodbye. He just hung up the phone.
I chopped that tree down and you manifest into some demon?
The Reverend ran up to the tree and held out his Bible with one hand while he flipped the woman's grieving veil with the other.
I rebuke you and your vileness in the name of...
The Reverend finally got a good look at the woman's face, and it made him stumble back so much that he tripped over his feet till his butt hit the dirt. The woman stood over him and reached out a gentle, black-gloved hand.
Hattie? Baby? Is that you?
The Reverend wiped his eyes and blinked a bit to refocus. His eyes didn't deceive him. Dressed in all black, veil tucked in her freshly permed hair, lips painted his favorite color of red, was Hattie Mae, better known throughout town as Mrs. Reverend. All right. That was a long one. It definitely was a long one, and I am so thankful that you stuck it out with me to get this far, cousin. I promised you a breakdown, and I am going to deliver on that promise, but before I do, I want to remind you to please like and subscribe wherever you are listening. Please be sure to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Please, if you have any thoughts, opinions, ideas, send me an email at cococonjure@gmail.com. All right, so let's get into the breakdown. We'll keep it short and sweet. Well, short and sweet as I can. So let's knock out the low-hanging fruit first. Ro didn't collect money from Arnold or Jim or Pookie and them for the work she was doing. In my head canon, she got the work that she was doing from her family lore Bible, and she was doing her best to, shore up the town. The last time we were with Ro, she was in the graveyard talking to her Aunt Beulah, and the reason why she went there was because she was going to do some money work to bring in prosperity, abundance, all sorts of things for her bed and breakfast, to gain a little extra money so she could pay off her debts. And then she realized that she had to think a little bigger than that. She had to be careful also what she asked for, right? That's what we learned last episode. So this episode, she's out doing work in the community, taking care of the people that are her people. Like, she learned that this is her town, literally, right? Like, she owns land here. She owns the plantation house the Reverend lives in. She owns the land the church is on. She owns the graveyard land. Like, that's her town, quite literally, right? And that in taking care of the town, blessings will come to her. So in my head, she got this work out of her family lore book. Perhaps it was an entry from the last child of the crossroad in her family, which would be her Uncle Remus. I, CoCo, got the work from Zora Neale Hurston's Hoodoo in America essay that appears in the Journal of American Folklore, Volume 44. Hurston herself was an anthropologist, a folklorist, and she went about the South, Florida, Louisiana, Georgia, and then eventually even to Haiti, to learn about hoodoo and voodoo. So this particular work to bring in good business comes from her mentor, Ruth Mason. And the work, word for word, is as follows. To pull a crowd in business, boil 1 quart water, put in a dime's worth of honey, 10 cents of Japanese fast luck, take 1 cup every morning or 12 at night, and throw it at the gate of the building, and you will have a great crowd. And then there's also powder to pull business to your door. So you get the bark off the sunrise side of a sycamore tree and dry it in the sun. You make a powder. First mix sugar and sand, and then you're going to throw it all over the floor. Then sprinkle the sycamore mixed with that Japanese fast luck. Now, in the story, I didn't say all that because we're looking at it from the Reverend's perspective, and all he knows is that she's doing some washes and handing out herbs, and that's the devil's work, right? And since there is no gate, I adapted the work much how I feel Ro would have adapted it, by first sweeping out any stagnant and unwanted spirits of lack in that location, and then making sure, of course, to sweep from back to front of the establishment, then taking that wash mixture and washing down the direct path from sidewalk to business. So she just adapted that work to her situation as best she could. Then Ro probably pre-mixed the powder to pull business, and as we saw at Next Cafe, she taught all the business owners what to do and then passed out the powder as she collected the money that everyone had gathered for the renovations on the church. Now, cousin, I know you are about to ask me, what the hell is Japanese fast luck? Right? Like, what is that? Because I say you got to have Japanese fast luck plus sycamore. Like, so what is that, right? Hurston didn't say specifically in Hoodoo in America or in any of her other books where she talks about her time with hoodoo doctors. From what I can gather, it's an oil or a powder mix of herbs that brings luck, obviously. The only mention of it that I can find online, and well, there are other mentions of it, but everything goes back to Lucky Mojo, which states that it brings the luck of 7 gods venerated in Japanese folk religion. I did in the show notes leave a link to that entry on Lucky Mojo. As someone who is not interested in buying this old school formula, you can try to make Hurston's red fast luck oil and try those results. She compares it to another luck powder. She doesn't specifically say Japanese luck powder, but both of these powders and oils will help you bring in customers into your store or make your business more profitable. And that red fast luck oil that Hurston mentions consists of oil of cinnamon, oil of vanilla, and wintergreen. Okay. Next are the Bible verses, right? So like most Black pastors, at least it's been my experience, and I feel like if you search online, you will see this in action more often than not. The Reverend has a chapter and a verse for everything, and he filters the world through the context of holiness, righteousness, and chapter and verse in the Bible, right? So if you are someone who marries your hoodoo with your Christian faith, I left a list of verses in the show notes, but here are a few that stand out. We have Isaiah 40:10 to gain some courage. We have 1 Peter 5:7. That's one that my great grandmother taught me. Cast all your cares on him, for he cares for you. That's to help ease anxiety. Then, of course, there's Isaiah 54:17 to overcome hardship and rebuke your enemies. My mother says a version of that verse often. May no weapon formed against me prosper or succeed. That's what she says. That's not the whole verse, but that's what she uses when she wants to rebuke a situation, a person, a problem. She's rebuking all day with Isaiah 54:17. Okay, so that's all the obvious work being done. So now let's talk about the lessons. Yes, Gracie. I'm almost done, baby. As I was writing this, I knew that I wanted the Reverend to be a monitoring spirit. As best as I understand, a monitoring spirit is someone who takes note of everything you do so they can either steal your ideas or your shine or undo your hard work by rooting for your downfall. They are people who stay in your business like it's some sort of sport because to them, they are in competition with you. They want what you have, or they want to take your joy and watch you suffer. Now, combine that with someone who is uber committed to their religion or spiritual life, almost to the point of religious or spiritual psychosis, and you have someone who can be very dangerous in your life. The Reverend has never met Ro. Not in any of the stories I've told you. Lynn says that. Ro said that last episode. They've never met. He has no idea who she is as a person or even what she enjoys, but he sees her as the enemy, an outside force that is stealing his flock and corrupting his town, one pillar of the community at a time. He's deeply spiritual and he sees in black and white. He can see her influence in town by how she's treated and welcomed, can see that she's leaned on, and to him, she's essentially replacing him as she's doing community work and being called on as a spiritual leader. Combine that with the fact that he is in his own pain. Whatever happened between him and his wife is something that he holds on to but doesn't talk about. And the Reverend cannot stand for Ro to be in his town. Can't do it. Also add to the fact that the Reverend and Ro come from similar lineages. The Reverend comes from a line of holy men just as long as Rose comes from a line of spiritual workers. Like they've been side by side in this town for as long as this town has been established. Their families have, I mean. And it doesn't matter that Ro is helping and tending to her town, even if her motives are also to gain prosperity for herself. She is blessing the town so she can be blessed, right? It doesn't matter that her intentions are good. She's not doing it in a way that the Reverend deems holy. It doesn't matter that her family has always been a pillar of the community as well. Doesn't matter if her tactics of sweeping away the bad and blessing establishments are oddly the same as how he swept away the bad from his porch and blessed his establishment. He has to undo her work and ostracize anyone who is in cahoots with her. But in order to do that, he has to first gather intel. So he follows her, and he is in some weird silent competition with her. I cannot say if the Reverend is in spiritual psychosis. Again, the man is clearly in some sort of pain from losing his wife and from losing footing in his town. Up till now, the town has seen strange things, and that's all thanks to Ro coming back to reclaim her birthright. So it's not like he's off base either. But what I can say for sure is that the Reverend has trained himself by nature of his vocation to be leery of anything that's not God-centered. Because if it's not God-centered and it's a cult, then it's demonic. So, are the birds Ro's familiars? Or are they just smart crows looking after someone that showed them kindness? Is Sarge being possessed by a demon? Or is he just a man surviving the best way he knows how? We don't know for sure. But what we can say from the Reverend's perspective, the crows, the cats, the flies, they're all animals used as familiar spirits by witches. And if the witch's mind is made toward the goal of taking over his town, it's not that far-fetched that she would then send her familiars out to monitor the only other spiritual person in town that could stop her. So, how does one go about removing a monitoring spirit from their life? If you have a monitoring spirit in your life, identify them and cut them off at the pass. That's honestly the best way to go. That's the best thing to do, is to remove them from your life. Stop telling them anything about you. Love them from afar. Move in silence like the G in lasagna, as Lil Wayne preaches, right? So Ro, she pays the Reverend no heed. He can see what he wants, but she's not going to share what she's actually doing, and she's not going to correct his assumptions. She's simply going to live her life and not waste her time trying to explain or make friends with this man. For Lynn and John the contractor, they confront the Reverend. They tell him to back off and point out that his jealousy and fear and loneliness is only serving to corrupt his own motives, not stop Ro from being loved and celebrated. And for the Reverend, it means not letting monitoring spirits take root in his life. He clears his home by sweeping and prays for divine protection from God. Then he literally cuts down the tree where Ro's crow friends took refuge. Now, unfortunately for the Reverend, the tree was more than just a perch for some familiar crow spirits, right? There was a reason Ro told his son that tree had to stay. You can change the church. Her mind could be made for a couple changes in that house, but that tree cannot get cut down. But the Reverend did cut it down. And next time we pick up in the town of St. Stephen's, we'll find out why Ro was so adamant that tree remained. Until then, cousin, I want to remind you that you deserve the world. May no monitoring spirit hinder you from your success. May no enemy steal your joy and your victory. Continue to work toward your betterment, and remember that life is not a competition. Run your own race. And cousin, know that if you call for your blessings, they will come to you. I'll see you guys next time.